Hey, I wanted to put this, our new year, just 2019, up here on the board, and just do the gematria on it. I don't know if you have. I do this every year. I have for so many years. I don't, it's just become a habit, basically. It's just a habit, just out of curiosity. And so you have, if you do gematria on it, and the way I do gematria is I just try to reduce it to its lowest common denominator, lowest number. That's where I'm looking for the number 1 between 9. And so in my mind, in my thinking, I have the numbers 1 between 9 memorized in Hebrew, and so I know the Hebrew energy of that number, and I know that in ancient Hebrew, that number is like a blueprint or a design for structures. Like, for instance, my body is a structure. So there's a blueprint or there's a design of the structure. So if I know the structure, I will know myself better. And that's the whole deal, really. Over the Temple of Delphi, know yourself. That's what it all boils back down to. No matter who you are or where you're at, it boils back down to that. Know yourself. So we come back to that. So the gematria on this, anybody can do it. It's real simple, real easy. You go 9, 10, 11, 12, right?
Right.
Okay, so 12, now that speaks to me two ways. Number one, 12, that's the number of astrology. That's a major number in the Bible. 12 tribes of Israel, 12 gates of the city, 12 foundation stones, 12 disciples, apostles. So 12 is a predominant number, always referring to the astrological wheel, the 12 astrological signs. So if I were to look at the astrological wheel as a window to look at the universe, I would see the universe through that wheel. You follow what I'm saying? So that's a very important number. But then, see, in gematria, I can reduce that number, right? So when I reduce it down further, what do I reduce it down to? 3. Okay, this is the year 2019. Next year will be the year 2020. And of course, talking to Barbara pointed out, well, 2020, perfect vision. But if you'll look at the gematria on this, 2 plus 2 equals what? 4. And the amazing thing about this is, if you do the year 2021, you'll have 5. If you do the year 2022, you'll have the number 6, all the way through to 9, and it'll start all over again. Now, that's a mathematical, what would you call that? Coincidence or whatever. I don't care how you look at it. It still works out to be that way. And but nevertheless, this year is what I'm going to focus on. I'm not focusing on next year. I'm excited about next year, but I have to focus on this year. I'm focusing on the time, the moment, the now. I want to capture the moment. I want to learn to live in the moment. I don't want to live in the past. It's a good memory. I don't want to live in the future. It's a good idea. But I want to live here, because this is where I am. I'm always in the moment, and we get confused about those. We get confused about the past. We get confused about the future. We carry luggage from the past. We try to look at situations, circumstances in our lives by the past, and then equal them out and say, and that could be a bad mistake. It could be a very bad mistake. So the past is what it is. It is a memory. It can serve me. It can delight me, or it can actually pull me down. I can look into the future and think all kinds of marvelous, wonderful things about it, but I'm not there. But I am right now. I'm right here in this moment. So I want to live in the moment, and the moment tells me the number 3. In Hebrew, that's the Gimiel. That glyph in Hebrew kind of looks like this. I'll kind of draw it for you. Kind of looks that way. And it's called Gimiel or Gimiel. It's one of the Hebrew doubles. It's the second double, but it speaks to me tremendously of this right here. I'll put this little character on the board. That's the 3. I call it light, life, and love. To me, those are the 3 characters that build everything that exists. I don't care what dimension you go to. If You go to a world that's 12-dimensional world, if there is such a place, I don't know. You know, I fully suspect that there are 7 dimensions because of I know we are in a, what, 3-dimensional world, projecting ourselves into a 4-dimensional, knowing that there are 4 dimensions. That's why we have the 4 gases. So that's a 4-dimensional world. We are familiar with that, but less familiar with the 5th dimension, which would be an etheric world, or ether, which is a divine substance, can't be seen but can be smelt. So it's sort of like we say, well, God can't be seen, but God can be smelt. Right? I mean, have you ever noticed that? Have you ever been in one of those high praise moments, one of those high praise services when you smelt that sweet Savior? I have.
Yeah.
You know, you can say, well, it's psychological. I don't care what you call it. It's valid. It happens to everybody. It happens for everybody. And so I say that is a 5th dimension. That's ethereal. I think we teeter-totter back and forth into that.
We did.
I think that we are moving into a time it's going to become normal. And so what I mean when I say normal, it's going to be something that we experience on a continued basis and not be thrown off by it. Just totally accept it and embrace it. It's not a time to go back and think, wow, it was this way. It was that way. Embrace it. Love it. It was. It's not anymore. It is a different time right now. There's a different energy right now. Embrace the energy as much, if not more, than you did that energy before. See, many people get burnt out, and therefore they lose their vision. They lose their goal. They lose their gusto. They lose their life. Well, it was not like it was. Well, hallelujah. It's better. It's just a matter of learning to embrace the moment. So this year, the Gimme L, the light, life, and love comes back to the Trinity of everything. Everything is built on this Trinity of light, life, and love. And I would look at this, for me, I would look at it like as light or the source of all that desires to be manifest. So what does it do? It's called the Hebrew glyph, aleph, or number 1. That would be this first light. Okay? And then I would say, because light seeks to manifest, the only way it can is to split itself, or to double itself, or to break itself off and mirror itself. That's called the Beth, number 2. And that word in Hebrew, Beth, or Va'ith, or Ba'ith, either way you would say it, start with a B or a V. Number 2, it always means container. And it's that always contains the uncontained. Let you think about that. What do you mean, Brother Lynn? Well, the uncontained is the aleph, the number 1. The number 1 is not God, but it's the only thing that we can use to try to explain what God is, because you can't explain God. Because God is all, and God is in all. No matter how you see it, no matter how you try to cut it, that is the truth. That's the fact. God is all. So that means God is Saturn, God is Mars, God is the moon, God is the sun, God is the plants, God is the trees. I remember I had a customer that, gosh, years and years ago, she was a beautiful Seventh-day Adventist lady from Haiti. Precious, precious lady. Her husband just died this past winter, and they have been really close to me because when they first met me, I was so radically different to them. They didn't know what to do with me, but they just loved me because I told her, I said, you know, the Sabbath is the Shabbat. I said, actually means peace and freedom. Oh, Brother Lynn, you think that tree is God? And I said, what else could it be? So anyway, her husband, he passed, moved on, and they're just beautiful people. But they're Seventh-day Adventists, so they're stuck in a religious box, which we all are. We still are affected by many of the ideologies that we had, and we don't realize it. They bind us, they hold us, and in many cases, they really don't serve us. And it's hard to shake those things off and move on to be all that we are supposed to be. So we're in a different day, but people aren't different. People are still the same. People are gathered. They like to socialize. They want to come together. So this splits off to make that. That's the second letter. So you got 1, 2. That's the Beth, or Ba'it. And then this begins to house that. So you have the 3. This becomes male. This becomes female. And the only way male and female can have, and now I'm not talking about a man and woman. See, this is so difficult. I was talking to Tony, the boy that worked for me that runs my shop now. He's taking it over. Talked to me the other day. I said, it's so hard, it's so difficult to try to talk about male and female because everybody's talking about, if it's a man, he's talking about himself, and then you talk about a female, he's talking about his wife, and I'm not. When I'm talking about me, male and female, I'm talking about me. My male and female, my left and right, my positive and negative. I am a male and a female. I'm talking about me, and it's hard to talk about that to people because we haven't learned to think that way, that I am a male and female, that I have both male and female attributes. This represents my right and left hemispheres, my positive and my negative. And my whole life is given to me to learn to live in a balance between those two. And I don't know how to do that because I get stuck over here in my female side. And I think I'm just female, or I get stuck over here in my male side. I think I'm just male. And I don't know how to balance the two. So I don't, that's the key. That's what Jesus was talking about in Matthew 5:6 when he said, if your eye be single, in other words, if you choose the middle way, choose the single path, then you'll balance the left and right. You'll balance the male and the female. You'll see those two sides because I tell you, I know that in living my life, young life of 49 or 59 or whatever, I have finally found out that in your disagreements or your arguments or your misunderstandings, generally they're just very moments. They're just moments that you don't want to hold on to because they don't serve you. It's a lack of the understanding of balancing the male and female, or those energies. And so everything will be about this. This is the year, to me, this is the year that we're going to balance these. We're going to learn more about them. We're going to experience them more. We're going to see them clearer. I'm going to see that I am light. Yeah. I am life and I am love. So I do have that masculine energy to create, to move forward. And then I do have that mother energy to nurture and to hold and to love and to forgive and to let it, to let it be. Because that's generally how it is. Years ago, I spoke in prisons. I went all over the state of Georgia and Alabama and spoke in many, many prisons and places that a lot of people wouldn't go. I took my son-in-law, Danny, one time with me into a lockup facility. And when you go into a lockup facility and they slam that steel door behind you, I'm telling you, it's got a clink, it's got a sound that kind of chills you to the bone. Oh shit, there ain't no way out of here, y'all. We are in here, period. And so I took Danny with me into a lockup facility, and he got really nervous because of it's almost like if you are, you get in a tight spot. What do you call that when somebody's in a claustrophobia? It's almost like claustrophobia with all of these so-called prisons. I found it to be a place of peace, and I found it to be a place of love because these guys have gotten caught at things I did. See, like, you did too, you just don't tell nobody on a small or large scale.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you put that little leg thing that's next to the right on that gimme out?
Well, the gimme out, it always has that little leg, that little pedestal.
I've never seen it on that.
You never have seen it? Let's see here. Yeah, if you'll look at it on that chart right there, you'll see it, but it's not drawn very clearly. It's not drawn clear as it should be.
That doesn't have a leg to the right?
Yeah, it does. That little leg, it comes straight down, but it should kind of be tilted back because it's like a three-legged stool.
Okay, I've never seen
That's how generally it's supposed to be drawn, or most of the materials draw it that way. Some of them don't. They'll just kind of come straight down with it.
Cool.
But either way, is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this year we're moving into this 3, light, life, and love, and I feel that it's going to be probably the best phenomenal year we've ever had for us, for me. And I want to talk about something, a passage. If you do have a Bible and you want to go to the book of Job, I'll show you a passage of scripture here in Job chapter 2. I did an exegesis on the book of Job, spent a whole year, actually I spent one whole year on a Wednesday night, what we call a Wednesday night Bible study, and I did the book of Job and broke it down from the Hebrew and from my perspective and my understanding of what the book of Job was about, come to find out, the book of Job is not about what most people think the book of Job is about. The book of Job is about three characters. There's the number 3 again. 1, 2, 3. It's about these three characters, and these three characters are listed actually right here in Job chapter 2, verse 11. It says, "Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that was come upon him, they came every one from his own place, Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Naamathite." So the rest of the book of Job, or at least 2/3 of the book of Job, is a conversation from these three guys to Job as to what they think Job should do in his situation. Now these three guys, it's amazing. I've done a lot of research on different commentators, different theologians, different professors on trying to break down these three guys and the book of Job, and I've not ever found anybody that really saw the book of Job from the perspective that I saw it when I looked at it from these three guys, because these three guys represent what I would call your mind, your will, and your emotions. Your mind, your will, and your emotions. Your mind, your will, and your emotions. And so these three guys, when they come at it with their nationality, because if you notice it gives all three of them a different nationality. They all come from a different place. Like Eliphaz, he was a Temanite, whatever that was. Bildad, he was a Shuhite, and Zophar was a Naamathite. And so when I did this teaching, I was focusing on these three guys and the fact that the last chapter of the book of Job, if you'll look at it real quickly with me, most people never see this. I mean, you figure you're special. Tonight you're going to see something that very few people ever in Christianity saw. Most people never see it, and it's amazing to me that especially theologians and scholars who are supposed to know how to exegete a book don't ever find this particular simple truth, but it's here in plain sight, right in front of your nose. Chapter 42, verse 7, it says, "And it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job, the Lord said unto Eliphaz the Temanite, My wrath is kindled against you and against your 2 friends, for you have not spoken of me right." So what does that mean? That means that 2/3 of what you will read in the book of Job that they say God would do is not what God would do. I've heard preachers my whole life quoting these three guys. This is what God said you ought to do. This is what you ought to do. And they never read that very simple passage right there. God said, they have not spoken of me right. Well, I find that to be true for the last 2,000 years, that Christianity has not spoken the truth. And that's so hard for people today. I mean, you know, it's almost like I become of the devil. I become a heretic or whatever they have branded me or labeled me, because I would dare to say, since 326 at the Nicene Creed and the Council of Nicaea under the Constantine Church, Christianity is not what it was for the 500 years before that. Yes, I did say 500 years before that, because Christianity dates all the way back to 300 plus BC. So I could easily say 600 years before the Nicene Creed, this movement called Christianity, which was stemmed out of the Essenes. It basically was a movement out of the Hebrew who had quit speaking Hebrew and had begun to speak Greek. And, you know, that's not hard information to find if someone really wanted to document it to see if it were true. But it is true. And so the Christians were called Christians because they understood the Greek word Christos, which is an oil that moves in your physical body. It's just like an oil of energy that energizes your physical body. It's like serotonin, melatonin, and other adrenaline. When your adrenal gland begins to move and open and function, it can feed your body. They say that a little lady as small as Beverly can pick up a car when that adrenal gland begins to move. That makes you a superhuman being, right? It does, it does.
Yeah.
Well, does it just make you that for that moment? No, you are that. But we don't know that. See, we don't know what we are. We don't know who we are.
Yeah.
We've been so dumbed down. We've counted on somebody and something outside us.
That's right.
We constantly do that. We constantly want to get a group of people and pray about something. Why do we do that? And again, I realize we energize or we console ourselves by doing that. But you know, it should be something that we learn. Prayer is me being able to tap into the power of the energy of who I am, not who somebody is outside me. Why do you think that we take the character Jesus and he would say, whatever I'm doing, you can do? And we have shut that off, haven't we? 2,000 years we have excused, oh yeah, but, you know, whatever reason you want to fill in the blank why you can't, and he could. But I'm just telling you, the words were, whatever I'm doing, you can do. And he said, besides that, it's not me doing any of this. What is it? Y'all tell me, what did he say? What? It's the Father in me. What is the Father? Well, right here it is. The Father is light, life, and love. And in that Trinity, in that threesome right there, there is more power than we can possibly imagine. In Hebrew, that's called the mothers. There's three mothers in Hebrew: Aleph, Mem, and Shin. You see these threes, they constantly go over and over and over. But yet, nevertheless, that's who I am. That's in me. Beverly, you have a question?
It's come to me before, you know, like the female of myself as a male, and that I thought of, now I mean, I'm just saying what I thought, that my higher self is the male part, and my matter, the part that's been lowered into this earth, and that is my female, and to get my female coming and having the dance with my male, which is my spirit, my higher self. So now maybe I got that mixed up,
No.
and that's how I thought.
That's how most all of us will embrace that. And to embrace that, yes, that's just in spirit embracing matter. That's a twofold dance. But you're really not a twofold dance. We think we are because I'm thinking of myself as a male, and so God's embracing me and God's dancing, and that's just two. But there's really not. Actually, there's three of me because I am a male and female. And that's the part that's hard for us to grasp and understand. So when you actually, it is a threesome. Actually, anything you do in this life is a threesome. Even though we may say, well, it's spirit and matter. Well, that's ways of what we designate something spirit. We don't even know how do you define spirit. What is spirit?
Yeah.
Nobody knows.
True.
There's no definition ever given to spirit. They said it was breath, it's wind, it's, oh, you mean you can't see it? No, you can't see it. Oh, where is it? I don't know. Because see, spirit is another way of saying nothing. It's no thing. It's but we say breath. What is breath? I don't know. We say it's certain gases. We try to take biology and reduce it down to gases and different, and it can be reduced in those. And do you know what? You reduce it down and it come down to 3 gases, which is totally amazing. If you reduce the seed of your father down to its lowest denominator, it will actually reduce down to 3 different particles. If you reduce the egg down, it'll actually reduce down to 3 different particles. So this 3 constantly comes up. And I realize that's what you said is common to think that way. I'm not saying it's wrong to think that at all. That my spirit and my physical are being danced together as one. But if you bring another into the mix, like for instance, you're just looking at yourself as a female, you don't see any male attributes about yourself. But if you looked at your right hand and said it's masculine, your left hand you said it's feminine, then if you helped yourself and then begin to love yourself, you're loving yourself with your male and your female. Because that is your male and your female. Because your whole body, if you open it up and split it down the middle, it's split into 2 parts. From your right hemisphere to your left hemisphere of your brain. So learning to embrace the wholeness of my being, to love me, period, male and female. We have never been taught that.
That's right.
We don't even hardly know how to think that.
That's right.
That's a different concept. So I'm saying we're moving into a year where this concept is going to become a normal way of thinking, that I can begin to see myself. And what I feel and what I project, prophesy, here we go, I prophesy, that this will bring a freedom to mankind to be individual and be unique without judgment.
Amen.
What do I mean by that? I mean we quit learning to judge the way Christianity taught us to. Because we have been inundated with Christian judgment for 1,700 years. They taught us, number one, that the Father God was sitting on a throne with a piece of pencil, and He's watching you and taking a list, judging you.
Yeah.
And everything you do or don't do, He's taking the list, and He's going to make sure that you are held accountable for that. We've been taught these lies, and we kind of innately believe them, but we want to get rid of them, right? That's not God. That's not light, life, and love. That's not what energy essence is about. It's not about judging you, period. So, well, I did this wrong thing. In whose eyes? It's wrong in a certain group of people's eyes, and in a certain other group of people's eyes, it was right. It was the right thing to do. So where do we get the difference between right and wrong in judgment? You see, because if we all would come back to learn the astrological wheel and Aries and Libra, they are balancing beings. And it's balance that will help me to walk. It's balance that will help me to live. I am not saying that there's things that I should not do. There are. I'm not saying that there are things that I should do. There are. I'm saying that if I can learn to look at my life in a mirror of balance and realize this didn't serve me that well. Did I learn from that experience? If it was what we call bad, evil. I want to try to get into evil or Ra and Tov. I want to try to get into that if I can tonight. Because this is where it comes to, and this is the Hebrew Ra, and this is the Hebrew Tov, T-O-V. I just simplified, Ra and Tov. I want to get into that because we have been taught from the King James translation of the Bible, this is evil and this is good. When actually that's not what it meant. This was the right and this was the left. It was referring to balance. Again, it comes to the place of balancing things. So there's not a situation in our life, my life, or your life, that we come to, that we can't find balance in. We can look at it, and then we personally can, what we call judgment, we personally can look at it and balance it out. Say, didn't serve me. I didn't get what I really should have got, or could have got. Do you understand that? Is that? Okay. All right, well, let me read this on again. Verse 7, Job chapter 42, verse 7. And it was so that after the Lord had spoken these words unto Job, the Lord said unto Eliphaz the Temanite, My wrath is kindled against you, and against your two friends. You have not spoken of me the thing that is right, as my servant Job hath. Now, again, I would go back, and like I told you, I spent an entire year of doing an exegesis on this book, and so I have certain markings in this book, especially chapters 30, 32, where actually Job began to speak, and Job's friend Eliphaz began to speak, which begins to add clarity to this. So I would say there's not anything that his three friends said that was not information that could be assimilated. And maybe from it see a place where we can get balance. But I want you to come back to chapter 2, where I read about Job's three friends and their names, because I'm not doing that. That's a whole, goodness, that'd take a whole year to do that, the whole book. But anyway, verse 10. Look at verse 10. I want you to see this right here. But he said unto her, You speak as one of the foolish women speaks. What shall we receive? You see that word receive? That's the Hebrew word kabal. Kabal. Now there is an organization today, and I'm not really familiar with it. I was kind of hoping Phil would be here tonight. I know he'll be tomorrow. And I wanted him to give me what little bit of information he has about cabal. Because my understanding of cabal today is a group of people that they are saying are Illuminati, extremely rich people are trying to control the world and destroy everybody so they can control the masses of the population. I don't know. I'd like to know, but they're taking a precious word. I know they're taking a precious word, cabal. That's a Hebrew word, cabal, and they're perverting it, which is, I don't know if that is a trick or if that is on purpose, to take a precious word and pervert it. The Catholic Church is good about doing that. Take precious words and pervert them. Anyway, this word cabal from Hebrew actually means to receive, to be a receiver. And the idea behind this word is that my body is designed like an antenna. And therefore, as an antenna, my body is constantly reaching out its tentacles or its antennas to find a signal. And of course, that signal is the signal of the universe. That signal is the signal of God. That signal is the voice of God that's speaking to me constantly if I have an ear tuned to hear it. Wow. That's why I want to put such an emphasis on astrology. We have been dumbed down on astrology. I have been. Yeah. And we have been on purpose. I think it's a purpose from the church so that they can control us. But now, that word cabal, and I want you to see the importance of this. If I'm saying the word cabal is that it's an antenna that's designed to pick up a signal that's beyond itself. And of course, I'm saying that signal is the energy of God, the vibrations of God that's constantly coming to me, and it's coming to me from any and all directions. I hope you'll see that here in just a little bit. Coming to me from everywhere, from any and all directions. And every direction it comes to me, it comes at a different vibration, a different sound, a different word. It's up to me to decipher them words. Notice what it says, that we shall receive good, that's the Hebrew word, good, tov, translated tov. If we would stick to the Hebrew word tov as right or left, okay, then it's the good at the hand of God shall we not receive evil, ra. Now, what did he say come from the hand of God? It's right there in that verse. He said good and evil. So, does that mean that the good things that happen to you and the bad things that happen to you both come from God?
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's just a bad choice of those words. If I could understand that God is just constantly giving me choices, that's all. Constantly sets choices before me. It's not that this choice to the right is going to serve me more than this choice to the left. This choice to the left may serve me more than this choice to the right. And it may be a hell of a journey. I may even would call it evil or bad. But I may gain so much knowledge and wisdom and understanding from that bumpy ride that it would blow my mind. But you know what? We have been so dumbed down by Christianity, we're going to call that evil of the devil. Ain't got nothing to do with that. That might be your best choice. Where did it come from? God. Do you think God's giving you something that's a bad choice? Absolutely not. Everything God is giving, everything God is sending out to us is the right choice. And like the energy knows which way we need to go and what we need to do. So anyway, we've taken those verses and we've just totally lost them, misunderstood them, and not extracted the truth from them. But I wanted to show you that, just give you that. Again, we'll talk more about Ra and Tov, the Hebrew Ra and Tov in the Genesis chapter 2. That's the tree of knowledge. It should be the tree. There are two vital parts to our body. There's the physical and there's the psychological. The psychological is the one that is starved to death. Why? Because we have perished for knowledge. Where does knowledge come? It comes from the psyche, the psychological side. It's only just been in the last 100 years that psychology has even been noticed as a science or an idea by us. You know why? The church, the Catholic Church, would not allow it. They would not allow us to accept it. Actually, it was Carl Jung that began to bring out psychology and the need for it and the understanding of this. So I want to read you this by Carlos Soares. He says, but the Kabbalah is not a derivative from or a superstructure of or a heresy of Mosaism. The contrary is true. Moses was directed to give out this very ancient knowledge, antedating Judaism, in a historical sequence. Now that's a very powerful little sentence right there. I don't know if you can kind of chew on that or whatever. They're saying here that Kabbalah was an ancient science far beyond. You've been told Moses wrote the first 5 books of the Bible. But then when you get into it, you realize that Moses is not a real character. You wonder who did write those books. We ain't got no clue. Nobody knows who wrote those books.
Yeah.
Some say that, who was it that found the books in the temple? It wasn't Zach, was it Zechariah? Hezekiah found the law. They'd been lost. The Torah had totally been lost to the Jewish people. And anyway, so the Kabbalah, this knowledge, this wisdom was mostly handed down through oral traditions. It wasn't written down. It was handed down through oral traditions, and most oral traditions say that it comes from Abraham, but Abraham is not a literal character. Abraham and Sarah and their story represent this right here, Ra and Tov. So to understand the story of Abraham, to say that Abraham is writing, is actually to say your brain is what's writing this story. Because Abraham and Sarah represent your brain, left and right hemispheres, the Ra and the Tov. Now, can your brain write a script? It can. It can actually write the script of your life. So the Sefer, this is the Sefer Yetzirah. The Sefer Yetzirah is a very ancient writing that Kabbalah builds a lot of its information on, but actually this is a book that would make 1.5 pages. That's all. But there are commentaries on the Sefer Yetzirah that would make 600 and 800 pages, because I have it. You know, this one right here makes up 173 pages on the Sefer Yetzirah. And then I have another one in there by Wayne Westcott, makes up 143 pages. So the Sefer Yetzirah is a very, very controversial piece of work, but it deals with the 22 Hebrew glyphs, the major glyphs of the alphabet. And here's what he says about the Sefer Yetzirah: leaves no doubt as to its authority and its Kabbalistic method. It never refers to Moses or to his laws or to a historical Jewish people. It is outside the flow of time. Its only contact with history in language that has nothing anecdotal about it is the legendary Abraham, who is not a historical character. You know, I know to say that or to read that, it's so difficult for us to assimilate that and think that. You know, I know I've read it and thought it so many years that I grasp it or I get the idea behind it, but all I can just say is think on it, chew on it, do whatever you need to do with it. But let me read just a little bit more and I'll jump into a few of the things I want to share for tonight. Because tomorrow we want to get into the astrological wheel and how that it is each one of us individually. It is me, and I am it. It has imprinted me. It has created me. It has branded me. It has made me. It is I. And if I know that, then I realize that I don't have to look outside myself to find the Savior. That Savior came in me with that. So I always find it inside me. But what did we learn from Christianity? You gotta look outside yourself. You find it out there. And the sad thing is, it's not out there. The ancient writings tell us that. It's always within you. Jesus did say that, didn't he? Why do you go looking for it? But we have been dumbed down. So, let me go on and read just a little bit further here. It says, well, it speaks to those who know its code in the following words that conclude the book. Abraham, our father, may he rest in peace, when he was set on emitting a flux, on participating in the vital flow, he looked, he saw, he explored, he articulated, he mapped out, he heaved, he combined, he structured, he raised his hand, and Adon Hakal, blessed be his name, filled him to overflowing, revealed himself to him, received him in his bosom, kissed him on the head, called him my friend, and made a covenant with him and his descendants, which he authenticated with Hay, Abram becoming Abraham. And what that just simply means that he authenticated it with the breath. The Hay, that's the breath. Abram was a mind or a brain, left and right hemispheres, with no breath to life it. And when the breath came in to life it, to oxygenate it, then through the hay, it could actually form words. Before that, there were no words. Couldn't make words. So, it says that he authenticated with hay, Abram becoming Abraham. He meted out justice to him, gave him an exact measure. He concluded with him a covenant between the 10 toes, and it is the covenant of circumcision, and between the 10 fingers of the hand, and it is the covenant of the tongue. And attached to his tongue 22 Otiah, and revealed Yasodim, that's the foundation, and he soaked them in water, he singed them by fire, he shook them by blowing, and he consumed them by the 7 and guided them by the 12. Wow. He said, what in the world was that all? Well, for me, that speaks a lot of volumes of things. And let me just share you some of the volumes of things that would speak to me. By that, I will just do this. I want to show you my stick man. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is my stick man. This is his arms and his feet. Okay, and this is the same thing as this character right here. This was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, and then this. Now all 3 of these are the exact same thing. Once you start to see it, it will make sense to you. Let's see here. Now, I'll explain what I'm drawing in just a minute, okay? So that you'll understand it. Again, like I said, I'm going to explain that to you. All of this is the same. Every bit of that I put on the board, this, and this, is all the same thing. Now, what have I done? Let me show you what I've done right here, and then we'll break this down. And this is something you can put, we'll work on this a lot in the morning, and you'll begin to hopefully grab a lot of the truths that you'll see here. I have another book I want to read from. Let me read this from Professor Holtema. About 25 years ago, I did a year exegesis on the book of Revelation. Back then, I used to take Sunday nights and I would take books of the Bible and just exegete that book and teach that whole book, break the whole book down. So I took a year and I exegeted the book of Revelation, and I come to realize the book of Revelation was a book about the physical body, the physical anatomy. And that hit me, and I thought, okay, it's not about prophecy, it's not about something in the future, it's not about in the past, it's about the physical body and its function. And so out of it, I started out with the 7, what I call my 7 endocrine glands, and lined these up with the churches. And how I did that is I took a medical dictionary, and I began to study the endocrine glands, and then I began to study the different churches and to see how those churches met with those endocrine glands. And I be doggone, they just lined right up perfectly with the medical dictionary. I thought, wow, isn't that a coincidence? Really phenomenal. I knew nothing about Eastern energy. I knew nothing about chakras. I knew nothing about energy points. This is 25, 30 years ago. And that's before I had even read any. I had never read the Tao or any of the Hindu writings or the Upanishad. I had not read any of that material at that time. Since then, I read all of that material. But I took this character right here, and I call that my stick man. And I began to see that in everything in the Bible. I mean, I started seeing it in Genesis chapter 1 with the 7 days. And I realized the 7 days weren't really days, they were facets of life that made me, that made up my being. And I realized that the 7 churches weren't churches at all, they were actually chakra, energy points. And that's exactly what they are. So when I found that, I thought, wow, well, I had not heard of this guy. I just started reading here, gosh, less than a year ago. And he has blown my mind, some of the things that he says. I thought, wow, he was in those meetings that I was preaching in years ago. Because I knew it was radical out of Christianity. I mean, they started leaving me in the charismatic movement right at 30 years ago. 28 to 30 years ago, the charismatics started saying, we're not really sure what you're saying. And I said, well, is it wrong? No, it ain't right. We love it, but we're just afraid you're going to get us into manifest sons of God. I said, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with being the Son of God manifested in the world? You know, I don't know. It sounds like maybe the devil. So anyway, they started leaving years and years ago. So here we have the chakras. I'm just reading this from Professor Holtema. The chakras cannot be found with the surgeon's knife because they are of astral substance and located in the astral body even after the disintegration of the physical body at death. The astral body is one with the physical body, but of a more subtle substance with a higher octave or vibration. Now, is that hard for any of you? Can y'all hear that? I think you can. We can hear that. A lot of people can't hear that, and I think that's a shame. I mean, you could say, well, that's my spirit body, or that's my divine body, or that's my God body. Well, okay. Then, do we have it? Yes. Can I use it? Yeah. Can I begin to live from it? Yes. Hey, that's what it's all about here. That's what it's about. So, he says, they're higher octave of vibration. The chakras exist in a subtle state. Gross matter is the result of subtle matter with a lower octave of vibration. This means that we can feel and understand the chakras as we feel and understand the mind during concentration and meditation. Wow, what about that? Could that be possible? I say yes, it is. No surgeon can find the mind in the physical body. Do you all know that?
Sure.
They don't know where it's at. Right now, quantum science is beginning to say, well, it's in the torso. It's not in the brain. It's in here. Let's say someone says it's in your heart or your kidneys or your bladder or your stomach. Now you're going to the stomach. The stomach is the brain, or the stomach is the mind, or is the mind the brain? See, all these questions are really floating around. I think that's good because they can't find the mind. Well, what is the mind? The mind is that which thinks, correct? Y'all have one, don't you? It does, don't it?
Yep.
Yeah, constantly. It does. Doesn't it always serve me? No. No, there's a lot of things it's just picking up. I think it's picking up some dust in the wind.
You got it.
Yeah, it's not really serving me good. Do I hear good from it? No. No, I don't. Can I? Yes, I can. How? Well, it goes back to Kabbalah. How do you do it from Kabbalah? Well, see, it's just exactly like taking a radio, whether an antique one or one for today, and turning it until you tune it to that station. And when you get there, what do you hear? Something clear, a song, someone speaking or whatever. But if you're not there, what do you get? Static. Well, that's exactly what tov means. That's what that word translated good means. It means static. It means that you're not there. And it's just like I use this illustration. I used to say to the kids, just sit down and be quiet, or be still and be quiet. Really what I said, and you'll be good. Oh, really? That's how it is, and that's the same thing with this word tov. Be quiet, be still, be good. So how do I equate being good? By being quiet, being still, shut up, don't say nothing. Don't create no friction. Because friction gets over here into raw, energy, movement. That's what raw is all about. It's movement, it's energy. Ra is here, the movement to move this, to energize this. Well, if Ra energizes a thought that's not serving you, will that thought then come back and curse you? Yeah. Well, that happens to us a lot. How? From thinking, just thinking. So, he said you can't find the mind, but is the mind in the body? Well, I have different schools of thought that says, no, the mind is the auric field around the body. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with the mind being in the body, the mind being out of the body. Wherever you want to put the mind, in the body or out of the body, the mind is still there, so is the etheric field. And that's where the energy, I'm saying that's the fifth dimension. Wow. If we've been moving and living from a third to a fourth dimension, what if we're about to step in the threshold of a fifth dimension, ethereal?
Yeah.
I think that's where we're at. I think that's exactly where we're at right here. That's this year in front of us.
Yes.
We're going to move into that dimension, ethereal. Hallelujah. That's my sense. That's where I sense it's going. Man's body, now I want you to hear this. Man's body is sealed with 7 seals. Here's your 7 seals of the book of Revelation. Here's your 7 endocrine glands. These are 7 energy points, and I am sad to say that for me, many of these, if not most of these, are sealed. I haven't been able to open them up. I'm working on opening them up where I get my energy flowing from my gonads to my brain. From here to here. I want it to flow through the whole of my body. And the thing of it is, it has to flow. It has to flow through this thing. And you see, this goes back to what Beverly talked about. It has to flow from this place right here.
Yeah.
Just exactly like this serpent. It has to flow. Like the serpent, the caduceus, that's what the caduceus is.
Yeah.
And what I want you to see, and I want you to pay attention to this very, very closely, is that there's always the pole, the right and left, as they interchange. There's always 1, 2, 3. There's always the left and right and the center. that's there. It's always there to bring balance. It's always there to bring me to a place where I am balanced. So he says, Professor Holtman says, man's body is sealed with 7 seals. The Upanishad speaks of 7 chakras. Chakra means wheel. The 7 chakras are 7 nerve ganglia bringing the 2 chains of the vagus nerve system. That's exactly what I just draw right here with the caduceus. This special system consists of 2 trunks, one on each side of the spinal column. That's these right here. One on each side of the spinal column. The ganglia seals the chakras. That's the ganglion nerve right here, just right here, right in the middle, just right here at the top of the stem of the spinal column, and connects to the cerebellum, the lower brain, and the cerebrum, the upper brain. And it's the brain that's right there in the middle, right under the pineal gland. Set right under that pineal gland. Wow! Can you just imagine what happens if we open all of this up in our body? You're talking about super giants. You're talking about people who begin to live the way we are built and designed to live. That's where we're going. That's our potential. That's how we've been built. We've had this information robbed from us for nearly 2,000 years. It's been here, but we've been told that we're damned if we read it or study it or search it out. This special system consists of 2 trunks, one on each side of the spinal column. The ganglia, seals or chakras, are nerve plexus suggesting a hub with spokes. They are composed of groups of living cells, for which reason they are symbolized as societies. That's Revelations 1:20 is what he quotes that to be. They are referred to as lamps, for when activated, they illuminate man's outer consciousness with the inner or higher wisdom. So that's the purpose of allowing this or having this to happen to us, is it opens my consciousness up, it opens my thinking up, it opens my mind up so that I can begin to be all that God has designed me to be. And so this wisdom that we find in Kabbalah that I talked about at the very beginning, when I read from the Sefer Yetzirah, when I talked about that wisdom of Kabbalah, to be an antenna, to be a receiver, I'm built to be that. Now, is there something wrong with my antenna? Am I not picking up the signal? Yeah. That's easy. How do I learn to do that? Well, I think one thing that we have to do to learn to do that, decalcify the pineal gland, I think that part of that is done through meditation, and part of that meditation needs to be looking into the sun in the wee morning hours as it rises. That's all the material I've read. My personal experience is that. Another way I think that we can decalcify our pineal gland and open our pineal gland is through structured water. Good pure water, which we don't get enough of that. Unless other liquids that we consume, more pure water, more sunlight. And those are not hard things, those are not impossible things, but do you know what we do? We make them hard and impossible, don't we? We find so many reasons why I can't do this. Well, you know what? You can go ahead and stay the way you are. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. So let me just kind of close this or quit or unhook right here. We'll pick up here in the morning. I want to close this with Romans chapter 4, talking about Abraham. Now, if you decide to read any of Professor Hilton Holtman's books, that's what this book is, Awaken the World Within. I'll just give you a little heads-up warning from my perspective. He's way off base on some really strange ideas. That's my opinion. Maybe he's on the base and I'm way off the base. I just don't know. But he is brilliant and he has some terrific writings, terrific books, if you want to look him up and get some of his material. But let me close with this passage in Romans chapter 4. Y'all know this and you've all heard this. And let's see, where do I want to read? Verse 13, Romans 4:13 says, "For the promise that he would be the heir of the world was not to Abraham or to his seed through the law, but through the righteousness of faith." And I'll change that word faith to trust. And that's my purpose to do, because we have been inundated with faith teaching. I grew up in the faith movement. I grew up under the faith teaching. And I would like to switch that idea and that word to trust, because trust is more accurate to the Greek pistis. Because you can have so much faith in something and it don't work for you. And every one of you had that experience. And you said, "Oh, but I memorized all these scriptures and I quoted it and I was really believing, I really believed." It didn't happen. That happened to so many people. And coming up through the charismatic movement and the hyper faith movement, I've seen it time and time again. But if we would put it to a place of trust, you see, trust is a personal thing. You either trust God or you don't. And that's not anybody's fault. It's not your husband's fault, your wife's fault, it's not your mom's fault, your daddy's fault, not your upbringing, it's not anything to do with it. You either trust or you don't. And how do you get trust? Does anybody have a clue how really you gain trust? I can tell you real simply. You gain trust through intimacy. Through really getting to know someone or an energy or something. Through intercoursing them, through intimacy. That's how you really begin to know and trust. Trust comes by knowing. And when you really have a deep knowing, a deep trust, that if God told you something, then bless God, the world and everything around you can't change that. You know why? You know it. Yeah. It ain't got nothing to do with faith. It ain't got nothing to do with because you named it and claimed it. And bless God, God owes it to you because you gave. Yeah, we've all been there and done it. Trust is of the heart. Trust comes from your heart. That's what the word pistis means. It's translated for faith, it's translated for belief, and it's translated for trust. More times for faith and belief than trust, but it should be trust in every case. So I'll just change it in this place right here. It says, "For the promise that he should be the heir of the world was not to Abraham, his seed through the law, but through the righteousness of trust. For if they which are of the law be heirs, trust is made void, and the promise is made of no effect. Because the law works wrath, and where no law is, there is no transgression. Therefore it is of trust, that it might be by grace, to the end the promise might be sure to all the seed, not to that only which is of the law, but to that also which is of the trust of Abraham, which is the father of us all." And he goes on and it tells you about Abraham and how he trusted God. And that's where, that's where we're coming. Right here's what God is. Light, life, and love. In case you don't know, you will. Light, life, and love. That's what God is. That's the simplest way I can tell you what God is. God is not a man, but God is light, life, and love. God is all, in all. He's everywhere. He's not individually just stuck anywhere by itself. Like, in other words, as off out into heaven. So, okay, we're just going to stop here.